Okay, in this movie, we're going to re-Dynamesh the model. Then we're going to, in order to close the holes and get the basic shape that we want, then we're going to use ZRemesher, which will go through and improve the topology. And I think we picked a pretty good subtool to do this to because it has a couple of quirks to it and things you're going to run into, problems that need to be solved along the way. So, open the geometry palette, open the Dynamesh palette. Now, anytime this button is orange, if you go to clear a mask like this, it will re-Dynamesh the model. And Dynameshing is a reinterpretation of the topology on the fly, and I didn't change it, so it didn't alter the model. It doesn't do it unless something's changed. But if I change the model even a little bit and then go to clear a mask, it'll redo everything. I don't know if you can see that, but all right. And what we want to do is we want to get a basic shape, like a lump of clay, into the right basic shape, so that ZRemesher can say, okay, now that I have this basic shape, I'm going to figure out what is the optimal topology for this shape. And right here, we're just trying to establish the shape, and then ZRemesher will go through and establish the topology for the shape. It's a two-step process. And we will probably project both of these, and it has some quirks. All right, let me show you the quirks. Here's the quirk. Because we're dealing with real data, it captured the medullary cavity of the bone, right? So, and we don't really want that. We don't really want to be rendering the inside. I mean, you could do it, but it's going to be harder to UV map, and it's going to be harder to sculpt, and I wouldn't have that. I would just have the outside shape of the bone. And then another problem is it has this little bridging piece right here. If you look, see this little thing right here where it gets real thin? That's a problem because Dynamesh won't know what to do with that. It'll be hard to UV map. The polygons are going through each other, and so we're going to have to solve all that. And I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work out, but we'll figure it out. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to get rid of the medullary cavity. And the quickest thing that comes to mind is to cut off the top and isolate the two shapes. So I'm going to cut off the top of this model, and now I have really two shapes. I have this shape on the inside and this shape on the outside. And I can tell ZBrush, using polygroups, to auto group and says, okay, if they're connected, make them one group. Well, because I cut the top off, they're not connected anymore. And you can see there's a separate polygroup down here. This is going to make one polygroup for the inside and one for the outside, just by hitting auto groups. All right, that alone would have taken you forever to do in any other software. It would have been much more difficult to do. All right, and so now we're going to unhide everything, and now we have our medullary cavity in there. We can simply select it, select the inverse, and I'm doing that by Command-Shift dragging. And now we could go through, and when we run Dynamesh, we have to delete it. We have to do delete hidden. So the buttons you're going to use all the time are Dynamesh, ZRemesher, delete hidden, auto groups, right? Those are some good ones to know. And you could set up key commands. I need to do that. All right, so now I'm going to do delete hidden. It's going to get rid of that light blue shape on the inside. And again, I'm seeing these colored shapes because I have polyframe turned on. All right, so now I'm going to do delete hidden, and I'm going to clear the mask again, and it's going to close that hole. Look at that. That would have taken you forever to do in any other software. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to get rid of this little bridging thing here. And I think probably the best way to do it is just to do this. And I'm just going to get rid of the polygons on either side of it. Oops, I'm sorry. I just want to keep these polygons. Command-Shift drag. And I'm going to give that its own color. Option or Control-W gives and Control-W just does create new polygroup from selection. And if you had something masked, and you get the mask key by holding on the Command key, if I painted a mask and then hit Control-W, it would make a new polygroup of whatever I had masked out. All right, so now I want to delete that thing, and so I'm going to show it. and I showed it by Command-Shift clicking on it. Then I'm going to select the inverse of that selection by Command-Shift dragging. Right? And now we're going to delete and then Dynamesh again. Delete hidden and then Dynamesh. And notice it went through and closed that hole. Now, it still made it a little bit skinny, so I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to move this polygon back into place. How about that? You love it? I'm loving it. All right, move that back into place. And now when we run Dynamesh, hopefully it won't try to bridge that gap. Let's see here. Yeah, so now we're just going to do Dynamesh again. Much better. Much better. Look at that. Great. All right. Now we want to do is we want to look for problem areas. And this is a problem right here. And it could be that our Dynamesh is just set too low. See that one polygon sticking out like that? That's not what we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, the first thing I'm going to try is just changing the level of Dynamesh. I'm just going to up this from 96 to 244. All right, I didn't change anything, so it didn't do it. So I've got to alter something very slightly and then do it. Yeah, there we go. All right, and before I do that, I'm going to go through and smooth these out, these points that I don't like. Because when we're done with it, good topology is, and you can, it's worth reading about what is good topology. And good topology pays off in many ways, not the least of which, and to smooth, all I'm doing is holding down the Shift key and painting over these things. And I don't want to do too much of this because it softens the model too much and moves it away from the underlying actual bony model, which we're going to use to reproject it later on. So I want to do as little of this as I think I can get away with. That looks like a problem area right there. Yeah. So let's see here. I'm going to try to use the move topology tool. Oh, that didn't do it. Let me see if I can change the auto masking. I don't know if that did it or not. Yeah, I guess that did it. Okay, so that solved the problem right there. So I just did this. You didn't need to do this whole backface mask thing. That didn't help. Backface masking just means if you have a very thin, if you have two polygons, one that's facing away from you and one that's facing towards you, and they're very, very, very close together, if you turn backface masking on, it will mask the ones that face away from you, so that you can move, you can operate, because otherwise it'll affect both of the polygons equally, and you don't want that. Trust me, that will come into play at some point, but hopefully not today. All right, so this model really looks pretty good, right? That looks pretty much like our bony model, but the topology is not very good, right? It just does it, the polygonal lines are not running with the form, and we would benefit from having improved topology. All right, so to get a better, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn Dynamesh off. I don't need it anymore. Yeah, I don't need it anymore. And I could make this a single polygroup by holding Control W. Now I'm going to go through and run ZRemesher. And ZRemesher is going to go through, and that looks about right. I could probably choose a lower setting and get fewer polygons, but I know my system can handle that, and I kind of like the way it looks. It captured a lot of the detail. Okay, so now, let me see, how long has this movie gone on? I guess it doesn't tell me. I tell you what, in the next, so now that we've done that, we've gotten our improved topology model, and then in the next movie, we'll go through and we will reproject it, and we will go through and make UV mesh. In fact, we'll probably do UV master first, and then once we have the UV maps squared away, then we'll go through and do the reprojection to recapture all that detail from our Osiris model. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.